Hi, this is Russ from CrafterCMS, and today we're going to talk about adding our own metadata to rich documents like PDFs, Office documents, also assets like images, videos, and so on. Now, to get a sense of this initially, let's look over at the sidebar on the left-hand side of the screen here, and you can see I've got a cabinet called Documents, which I'll show you how to configure in just a moment. And inside of that, I've got a single document called Test Word Document. Well, let's click on this and open it up. And here we see a content form of type document. And then it has an internal name. It has a pointer or reference to a actual rich document. And then it has some metadata. So a summary, whether or not it's featured, categories, industries, and then we've got some permissions here. So for example, how do we want to secure the document? Now, the exact metadata is up to you. It's part of your content model and you define it. So these are just examples. Okay. And the key thing that we're showing here is that this content object is sort of a jacket around an asset. So here we see the rich document, and that's the asset. So in Crafter, we can define a content type that we call a jacket, and we're going to go here and look at this in the content type editor. And you can see here this is exactly the same content type that we were just looking at, although this is the definition instead of the instance. And here you can see that we have the reference, the item selector to the asset, and then our custom metadata, which is whatever we would like to capture, including things like roles. So we're in complete control of this model and the metadata that gets associated with it. Now, when it comes to configuring Crafter Studio to allow us to do this, the first thing that we want to do is create a content model like this. And then we also have another bit of basic setup to do. So if we go to Project Tools and then Configuration, and let's start with Studio config. So I'm going to type config here, and you'll see that we have project configuration, and this is for Studio. Okay. And if we scroll down, there's a couple of areas that we need to configure. And the first is that we need to add documents, this location here. So we're going to, inside of these folders, we're going to let Studio know how we want to treat documents. We're also going to add documents here to declare that documents are a type of component. So this helps the Studio's permissioning system and available action system understand how to operate on the documents. And then we can also configure different MIME types that are assets and so on. Okay, after that, we're going to modify our project's permissions. So let's look at that. So we'll go to permissions mapping. And here you'll see that for the roles that are going to be writing the documents or interacting with the documents, we're going to want to add permissions for these roles. You'll see here that the place that we're storing the document jackets is under Site Documents. Okay. And so we're going to add unique permissions for those paths and the roles that we want to be able to interact with the assets. We also are going to be putting the jackets in static assets under static assets documents. This is a special path, and I'll show you why in just a moment. And we'll want to make sure that the permissions are set up there as well. Now, in this example project, which is based on a blueprint of ours called Fitness, I did not need to set up anything special for static assets. So there's no changes there to show you. Now, the next thing I want to do is get this cabinet set up in the UI so that I can create content. So I'm going to go to Project Tools and then go to Configuration and then UI and click on that. And then I'm going to look for Pages, for example, and let's say that I want to put documents right under Pages. Then I'm going to add this small fragment of XML here to include a path navigator tree. I'm going to give the ID documents, and I can give it whatever icon I like. And then I am going to route the path in site documents. In my project, I will also create this folder here under site called documents. And once I save this, I will then have the structure here in the sidebar. Once I have that, I can click on this and say new content, choose documents, and begin adding content, which I did when I first created this object here. So I would get an empty form. I would then be able to upload or select my document. Here you can see, let's go ahead and remove this. When I click add, I have two options. I can upload off my desktop, or I can choose an existing document. So if we choose upload, we just get the upload action. And if we choose existing, then we get a browse interface that is rooted in static assets documents. We can also have subfolders there. And then I see the documents that are uploaded in that area. Now you will notice that design doc has a .pdf, and this other document actually has an internal name. Okay, it shows like a friendly title. And I'm going to go ahead and choose this, and I'll show you that as I modify the jacket's internal name. So modification, and then save and close. The current behavior is that as we go back into the assets, okay, and let's remove this and browse, we'll see that the actual document itself shows the same internal name as the jacket object. Okay, so that's one thing to be aware of in this browse interface. Also, in the browse interface, you can upload documents into the folder that you're currently selecting in the left rail here. Okay, now this this internal name sort of takes us into our next topic, which is indexing, and how does indexing of these documents work in CrafterCMS. So to understand that, let's look at the base target YAML file, which is inherited by every publishing target that is built on top of Crafter, and it's going to provide all the default values for your publishing target. And then you can either accept those or override them. Well, let's search for indexing. And here you can see that there are various sections of indexing instructions for a base target. And the ones that we're interested in are binary. Okay, so this is the first section here. We can see the supported MIME types. These are what are supported out of the box, and these can be extended. This property here called metadata paths pattern is what defines what is considered to be a jacket by the deployer. And this is why I had to configure that site documents folder and then add a cabinet to the Studio UI, because by default, we configure site documents and then anything in between all the way up to .xml as a valid jacket. We'll also have a property that allows us to specify remote binaries. These are binaries that are on, in WebDAV or in S3 or other remote stores, where we'll actually download these documents and rich text index them and then remove the document, but so that it stays in the remote store, but we do have rich text indexing on them. And then if we look down below, there's also an authoring indexing configuration. And this defines some of the behavior for rich assets as well. Now, how does a jacket actually work when indexing? Well, what we do is we index both the asset and the jacket into the index. And for the asset, we take the metadata stored in the jacket and we combine it with the asset in the index. Okay, so The only way to really show you this is to look at it directly by making queries. Okay, so for example, the sample document that I have in the system is this blog document, and it's a docx. Now, you can see here that I'm going to make a query for all fields in all documents in my index, and I'm just going to query for a word that I happen to know is only in the docx. Now let's execute that query, and here we can see that we get a total of one result. And if we look closely, then we can see that the root ID and local ID of the object is the docx. So we're actually getting back the static asset in the index. And the system is telling us that the metadata path for that is the jacket that points to it. And if we look down at the properties that get returned, let's actually expand this a little bit so it's easier to see. You can see that we get back the internal name, which is from the jacket. We get other properties from the jacket, like object group ID, and then we see all of the metadata properties that we had added. So, for example, featured, authorized roles, and the summary. So let me see if I can find that for you. So there's the summary, and also a number of other properties like our taxonomy, which we selected healthcare. So you can see that these values from the jacket are incorporated or flattened into the static asset result. Now, one of the main reasons why we flatten in this direction is because we want the static asset to stand on its own with these properties. So we were trying to create that scenario in which the static asset is itself a full search result item and has all the rich metadata that you intended for it to have. And this becomes important when you have properties like authorized roles, which have a fundamental impact on Crafter Engine behavior. So, for example, if I were to change authorized roles to something else, some other role, then I would not get this document back, right, in the search, because in this case, I've not authenticated my postman. So just to illustrate that, let's take a look. So we're going to go back to Studio, and what we're going to do is we're going to change the access settings here to say that only franchise users, or users with a franchise role, are able to see the document. Okay, now if we go back to Postman, and again this happens to be an unauthenticated request that I'm making, and I send it, then you'll see that I get no hits. And that's because we're making a query for a value that we know is only in the document, but we are doing so from an unauthenticated standpoint. And you can see that Crafter Engine and the Search API are automatically applying the rules for authorized roles and eliminating that search result. So I'm not able to see it. And that again points to why the metadata is flattened into the document versus the other direction. So that also means that there's sort of a one-to-one relationship between the jacket and the document. You cannot have multiple jackets that point to the same document, because then there's competition for whose metadata is ultimately flattened into the document. It has to be a one-to-one relationship. Now, you can see how powerful this can be, because you can really create any amount of metadata and any amount of richness around your documents and then treat them as first-class citizens in the index. Now, what happens if we search for a value that we know to be in both the jacket and the document? Well, we can do that by searching for the word fun. I happen to know the word fun is in the summary and in the content of the document, which we are full text indexing. So if I search for this, and here you can see again no results back. That is appropriate because we have not changed the permissions. Let's jump back to our asset. Let's change the permissions to anonymous and then re-execute our query. Now we'll see that we get a total of 2 results. Okay. The first result here we can see is by either the root ID or the local ID, which in this case are the same. This is the asset itself, and if we were to search for fun, we would find it in the content, the full text content of the document that we indexed. We would also find fun in other properties, such as the flattened summary. So it matches for this reason as well. And then scrolling down, we also are getting the just the item itself, which is the item. We are also getting the jacket item here because we have a hit on fun, and we can tell it's the jacket because the root ID and the local ID are the path directly to the jacket. Okay. Now, if we want to avoid these hits for the jacket, we can specify that we are looking for a specific content type. So here we can say simple things like path all starts with /static assets, for example, or we can filter by the content type, which is component document.